they were so telling that this was an obvious setup. And, from then on, you have the government saying, oh, yeah, we need to do this because of the underwear bomber case or that, this or that. They all refer to this case as a basis to do whatever they want for spending and to cut down on our rights. So it's so telling. And if the people would just see, hey, this is a setup here, then everyone would be questioning, well, why do we have body standards in the airports? Why are we spending all this on TSA? Why are they now going to NFL stadiums or whatever? It's just totally ridiculous, in my opinion, and it's so obvious. Something I really haven't talked about yet, and I've shied away from this somewhat, is discussion about Judge Edmonds. I watched her in the courtroom quite a few times, and she doesn't seem to be biased if you watch her in the courtroom, but the more I think about her rulings, the more I have an issue with her. We'll just say that, because it's Judge Edmonds that put in this protective order that indicates that nobody can talk about the evidence at all. So you have the airport video, chemical analysis of the bomb, and all these other things that could be talked about, but instead, no one can talk about these things that would show that this was an intentional setup. It's all hush-hush. Of course, now Umar's representing himself. Is that any of this even going to come out? Probably not. Case closed. Let's move on. But not only that, a couple other rulings Judge Edmonds did, were along the same line. One was that since Chambers is only a standby attorney, he can only have the evidence that Umar decides to give him. So Umar gets all the evidence. Chambers can only see what Umar wants to give him. And then the second part of the July 7th hearing, which I didn't get to, was after Chambers complained that, hey, I was given all these things last minute, he then said, well, what have I not been given? Is there other evidence being withheld? How can I be sure I have everything? And instead of the prosecution saying, yes, you have everything now, they said, well, there is more evidence we're withholding. It's secret government evidence, and we're not going to turn it over. We're going to let you look at it, Judge Edmonds. And
so we're getting national security declared here, just like in Chicago last month. It's now been confirmed Sinaloa drug cartel did ship in massive tonnage of cocaine under U.S. government contract and guns into Mexico. I mean, this is just amazing how they declare this national security.
Right. And again, what is the official story? A crazy Al-Qaeda man goes through and lights off this bomb. Okay, where's the national security there? We have, again, 200 some eyewitnesses. We can easily go in and say, yeah, he lit this bomb. He should go to prison the rest of his life. Case closed. Where's the national security here? But again, that ties into another aspect of this. There's just so many offshoots to this.
Well, they find mentally ill people in all the big patsy cases and provocateur them to do these events, or they frame somebody and then threaten to kill their family, as we know happened with McVeigh.
So in this, something else that's kind of interesting here. It took the prosecution a year to charge Umar with conspiracy. Now, this was only after all plea negotiations had broken down do they bring out this charge. Obviously, they didn't want to make this charge because the next question is, and again, you don't see anyone talking about the conspiracy charge. It's not being reported anywhere. The news isn't talking about it. Why not? And the bigger question is, who are the co-conspirators? Why aren't they being charged? Why aren't they on the FBI's 10 most wanted list? Why isn't their participation being described? The evidence that there's conspiracy, where is it? And it all ties back to the same thing. The co-conspirators are undercover government agents. It's too obvious, Alex. It just all ties in together.
Kurt, that's the MO that we've seen over and over and over and over again. Even mainstream news the last 2 years admits where the FBI goes and creates out of whole cloth and finds mentally ill, welfare, ex-prisoner type to do this. I mean, they've been caught over and over again, not infiltrating groups, but purely creating them.
Right. It seems like their activities have no ends here because they control everything. They control the release of the information, what activities take place. They control the courts, the media. It's all a perfect setup. They have free reign to do anything they want. And it continues and it continues. And still continues. You know, if this were a legitimate situation, we would have Umar with a legitimate attorney presenting a case, presenting all the evidence accurately, calling people as witnesses like myself to testify in an entrapment case. We don't have that here. We're not going to see it, in my opinion. We're going to see Umar go and make some show that where all the media can report on him being a crazy nut job, and they can put pictures of it on TV, him acting crazy, and say, hey, this is a crazy terrorist. But the real story won't come out. It's being covered up, and I think it will always be covered up. At least that's the sense I'm getting now. And
well, Kurt, I mean, look, day one, it's Sunday, or it's Christmas Day. It felt like a Sunday. It's Christmas Day, and I'm driving up to get eggs. And within the time I went in, you know, driving up, I hear that there's been an underwear bombing on a flight into Detroit on Christmas Day. And then by the time I got out of the store 5 minutes later, they were already saying, don't worry, we've got body scanners that just so happen to be going in next month. We've just made the order for them. But I knew from covering it that they just made the order, you know, a year before. And that Chertoff was involved. I mean, this whole thing was a rollout, and the fear-mongering and the wringing of the hands and the little bomb and then the connections to it and the way they handled it. And then you came out on your blog and said he was gotten on the airplane. And the government's like, that's preposterous. And then a month and a half later, it comes out in congressional testimony that indeed that's true. And then there's no subsequent investigation. How much more obvious does this have to get?
I agree. You know, and all the people that came out and said, hey, I'm doing this for money, publicity, political office, promote my law office, whatever. Well, I think I've shut them all up now. They've all seemed to have gone away. I don't have any agenda here. I never have, just getting out this story. And, you know, I have to question, too, some of the passengers. Where are the passengers in backing me up on this story? You know, I've been told that many of them were military personnel, government employees, and government contractors. And, you know, there were some foreign citizens. Hardly any U.S. citizens with no ties to the military or the government. I don't really know how I even got on this plane. But don't you think they should be out there backing me up on this story, at least some of them? I mean, where are they? Even some that I try and contact ignore me. Now, I've talked to some. But, you know, interestingly enough, Alex, by the way, I think they should be out there supporting me, or at least doing investigative work to see if I'm right or not. But we don't have that. But something you might be interested in, I actually got a call from the cameraman in this story. You know, there's been much talk about the man that pulled out his video camera and filmed this whole story. And since I talked to you, I talked to you a couple days ago, but I didn't mention this. He called me out of the blue about 2 months ago, and we talked about an interview he was going to do with prosecutors and some security and I believe FBI or CIA or something. And we talked about it, and he told me that he was filming outside at 20,000 feet and turned his camera and started filming the incident. Then it didn't stop. Now, that's his story. For what it's worth, the story doesn't sound real credible, but just for what it's worth, he did sound credible to me. And I, at least at this point, I think his involvement is probably a red herring in this to detract from what the real story is, the sharp-dressed man and the other man arrested, the man in orange. But anyway, it was just kind of interesting to me that he called me out of the blue to talk.
Now, do we know whatever happened to the other guy that was arrested that the government tries to deny was arrested?
No, we don't know. We don't know about him. Again, you know, the government changed their story on him 5 times, continually lied.
Did you see the report 2 weeks ago with the supposed live explosives smuggled into the Phoenix airport by the police in a drill and then lost and then dumped on the side of the road?
No, I'm not aware of that. No.
Now, there's more and more of these events, and Obama advisors, even in the Financial Times of London, have said, barring a new Oklahoma City or 9/11, they're not going to be able to get their agenda through, and you can see all the pre-hyping and fear-mongering. Kurt, you know, you survived this, your wife survived this. We've never talked to your wife. What's her views on this? Do they mirror yours?
Yeah, they do. She, just a couple of things. She didn't see the sharp-dressed man because, if you recall, we were playing cards and she was sitting opposite, so facing me, so that this happened behind her. So she isn't as wanted by the media as I am because of that. And number two, she's not real comfortable with the media because early on there were some people that came out and put some negative blog postings about her, and she kind of got turned off.
Yeah, that's COINTELPRO trying to shut you up. The terrorists don't want you to get the word up.
Me 100% and fully supports everything I'm doing, which is good because, you know, there's some trying times with this and people saying I'm doing this for the wrong reason. But she agrees with me.
Well, Kurt, why even respond to that? You were the voice in the wilderness talking about the guy getting him on, and then later the State Department in testimony had to admit that indeed they'd been ordered to help him get on. I mean, that is incredible information, absolutely verifying what you've said. They always attack, even if it's asinine, to make you go on the defensive instead of looking at the facts. It's a way to change the subject, as you know, as a lawyer. Now in the time we've got left here, you said on the TV show, InfoWars Nightly News a few nights ago, that, you know, it's over, you can't fix it, leave the country. And I made the point that there's nowhere to run. This is a global corporate government. They're imploding every system. We've got to stand and fight. Now I'm not saying you're wrong completely, and I understand your view, but, I mean, do you get my point that it's always darkest before the dawn, and yes, the government's very corrupt, but we don't have a hope. I mean, it's not like this is Albania or something and we could just leave. America is the heart of the world government right now, and they want to take over the whole planet, these criminals, using America. We don't have a choice. We've got to stay here and expose them, and God put us in the heart of this wicked empire to be able to try to restore the republic. That's why we're here. That's why you were on that aircraft, Kurt.
Yeah, you know, I think you have a point there, but do they control the entire world? Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm not convinced of that yet, but maybe you are right. But, you know, I've done everything I can, I think, to expose this. And, you know, I'm just going up against the wall. So I think, at least in my position, I've done everything I can do so far to expose this. And I think, you know, I need some more help. Have
you walked over to the prosecutor in the hall and said, how can you be part of this? You know what really happened here.
No, I've thought about doing that, but I haven't. I think it would probably cause a scene, and I wouldn't want to get into any kind of screaming match. Remember, too, I can still file a civil suit. I haven't done that yet, but that's not out of the question.
And that's how you're going to start getting the documents. You know, it was civil suits that proved McVeigh was with a bunch of other men, as eyewitnesses had said, and that the feds were running the operation. And then said that all 20-something videotapes had disappeared or been destroyed or been lost. I mean, I think that's probably what's needed next is a civil suit.
Right. I'm taking the position, at least right now, I want to watch some of the trial first. I have till Christmas Day to file a case, so I'm going to watch and see how this plays out before I decide what I'm going to do with that. But I haven't made a decision on that yet, but that could potentially shed some new light on this too. I want to see how the trial plays out. If it plays out as I think it might, just a total farce, that may propel me more to file a civil suit.
Well, let me say this. You've already done a lot for truth. All I'm saying is you're already deep into this. You might as well go all the cards on the table, all in, because from my research, you are in danger until you get the suit going. Once you've already got that in action, they tend to go ahead and go to the game plan of trying to beat you on that. It might just be easier to kill you, though. We know these are killers in the interim. So I want to tell you what I told many others that they have subsequently killed, like the D.C. Madam and others, and, of course, Barry Jennings and others, who was a 9/11 witness, the deputy head of emergency management in New York. You need to go public now with everything. Are you watching your back, Kurt?
Well, to the extent that I can, I am. But, you know, if somebody wants to kill me, I don't think it would be too difficult, really. I try not to think about that. I'm not overly concerned about it.
No, I got it. You're a real man. You're just committed to the truth. And if they kill you, that's the way it is. That's exactly how I operate.
Right. If they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me. And that's fine. They can only do it once. I'm not overly concerned about that. So,
yeah, you've got the spirit. We need, if we had 10,000 more people like you who would take action, Kurt, we would kick these people's butts.
You're probably right, but it would probably take 10 million.
Well, it takes 10,000 to wake up 10 million and to march on these people in the info war. Briefly, any other points, and give us your website.
Just, with everything I've said, anyone